Welcome to 60 Plus Racing Adventures, welcome to RaceSpot, and welcome to Laguna Seca for round one of this new season of the only iRacing league for serious and seasoned racers. That's drivers of 60 years of age or over, but age is no barrier in sim racing, and we've seen throughout the seasons that we've covered this series on iRacing, the great racing that these drivers produce, the fair competition that they engage in, and we're looking forward to another exciting season of that here live on RaceSpotTV from Laguna Seca. And let's have a look at some of the weather and the track here. I'm David Haynes, and alongside me is going to be Paul Smith for this round. And Paul, your thoughts?
So the conditions here, as you can see, air temperature is 68 degrees Fahrenheit with track temperature of 111, that's 44 degrees Celsius for those using the metric system. Partly cloudy, hardly a breath of wind in the air, and David, I'm really looking forward to the season because once again we get to see 3 weeks of this championship, and they always produce fantastic action for us.
Yes, indeed they do, and for the new season there's plenty of drivers out there. We've got maybe 30 or so drivers that will take the start. Here's the schedule in 60 Plus Racing Adventures. Round 1, that's where we are right now at Laguna Seca. Then they'll head to Watkins Glen in these Pro Mazda open wheeler cars. Then to Brands Hatch the week after that, then Bathurst into Lagos. We'll check in again and cover the 6th round from Mid-Ohio. The season continues on to Nürburgring, Road Atlanta, Silverstone, Zandvoort, and the new Barcelona Grand Prix layout circuit to Barcelona, Catalunya. A lot of people like that one, and it'll be a popular choice, I'm sure. And then we'll cover the season finale on November 27th here on RaceSpot from Phillip Island. So of those 12 rounds, you can see the 3 that we're going to be covering here, and looking forward to kicking off this new season here at Laguna Seca.
Yeah, it's going to be fun racing. Tricky to overtake here, so it's not that easy. We've got the qualifying times up on the left-hand side for the top 12. We'll go through qualifying results once the session is over, because there are still a couple of people out there. But yeah, it's quite the mix of tracks. Barcelona, it's a shame we're not covering that one, because that'd be a fantastic race to watch these guys race around. But then again, Phillip Island is one of my favourite tracks to race on, and it always produces brilliant racing.
Yep, indeed. So our format here is 2 races, and each of them 22 laps, each of them with a separate qualifying session, and your championship points that you take away from the round is whichever was your best result between the 2 races. So qualifying has been mostly run by most of our drivers here for race 1. They get 2 laps to put in their best lap here, and you can see that Stefan Rostchen, Bill Lawrence, Paul Stump, your top 3 so far. Ralph Camera on screen, one of the drivers who hasn't yet set a time. He's out there and will hopefully, in the remaining minute or so, be able to set a time to see where he can stand on the grid, because he's coming through towards the last corner, so if this is a flying lap, he'll definitely have time to complete this one.
Yeah, but once that timer hits 0, that is it. That's the end of your qualifying. A lot of people maybe still get used to that, but across the line goes Ralph. And down to 24. So he does set a lap time. There's one other driver out there, Jack Turner, but he hasn't set a qualifying time. And in fact, he's just going to carry on for a bit more practice here with 33 seconds remaining in qualifying.
Yep, indeed, and as I mentioned, a 22 lap race we've got ahead of us here, and these cars, these Pro Mazda cars, open wheelers, slick tyres, and about 250 or so horsepower from the rotary Mazda engine. It's plenty for some good racing, but it's not a massively huge amount of power, and that's why we see that slipstreaming and drafting is often the way to get a pass done in these cars and in this series. But Laguna Seca probably doesn't lend itself to that as much as some of the other circuits that they're going to go to.
It certainly doesn't.
So qualifying completed, and we can now bring you the official qualifying order We'll bring that up on screen. We saw pole position went to Stefan Rostjan, and then second position is Bill Lawrence. Second row is Paul Stump and Leif Hellberg, and then behind them in 5th place Mark Robertson, and then Russ Addy, then John Morgan and Jos van der Ven, last season's champion. Going to start from 8th on the grid. It's Leroy Coppage, Louis Cannell, Urs Muller, and Stephen Karkner rounds out our top 12. Yeah, I did a rolling start at Laguna Seca today in the TCR cars, and I might have been about 12th on the grid, and the green flag waved while I was still coming through that final corner. So if you're deeper in the field, it's certainly a case that the leader might get away in racing before you're on the start-finish straight yet. That is one thing to definitely look out for. They do a full pace lap around Laguna Seca here, but thankfully it's not the longest lap. We saw on screen earlier the length 3.7 kilometers, quite a bit shorter than some other circuits like Road America, where you also do a full pace lap. And I'm not quite sure how many cars we see on the grid, but certainly there was 29 drivers that brought a car to the track today. And that Porsche 911 GT3 Cup safety car will lead them around until the pit entry, where it will dive in, and then it'll be Stefan Rostjan and Bill Lawrence on the front row who are going to get this racing underway. Yep, exactly. A lot of it will be about looking for a mistake from the driver in front of you, though. And we've got one last corner here with safety car before it peels in. We'll do that right about now. It's the 22 car on pole, Stefan Rostjan. Bill Lawrence in the 17, blue and white. And Rostjan backs the field up, come through the final corner. When will he put the foot down? Will he wait for the green flag? Field in the background still coming around the corner. The green flag waves. Stefan Rostjan puts the power down, and they're nearly going to go 4 wide. It's a pretty narrow start-finish line here. Concrete wall on the left-hand side. Everyone away cleanly so far. Rostjan will hold the inside line down into turn 1 or turn 2. Bill Lawrence not going to let him get too far away, and someone's around. Paul Stump around as well. 2 drivers spinning through that Andretti hairpin.
Yeah, Matt Robertson, one of them, as you mentioned. Stump was another one getting caught out through that first hairpin there. We've got cars off further back there, and Stump's got involved again, and that was with Bruce Granheim. So major instance.
Big damage.
Yeah, major instance starting. In fact, I can't even see Bruce. He's hiding behind a pillar, but we'll get a replay of that one, because that was quite a dramatic moment there. He just suddenly seemed to snap to the left there, didn't Bruce?
Yeah, quite a few drivers looking like they were struggling with cold tyres at the start of the race, and also hot track temperatures, probably also a little bit slippery. Gosh, a little tap on one side might have dented the steering and the suspension, and he's veered violently to the left across the car of Paul Stump and hard into the wall. So quite a few cars picking up a little bit of damage on lap 1, but not Stefan Rostjan or Bill Lawrence from the front row of the grid. These two are trying to storm away. Rostjan trying to break the draft a little bit as well. He leads after lap 1 with Bill Lawrence along with him. And Paul Stump, who started in third, well, he did not have a good start to his race, and that's meant there's quite a bit of a gap backwards from Bill Lawrence to third place. Leif Hellberg, who's leading a little train from third down to ninth.
Yeah, there's, as you mentioned...
Jos van der Ven, lightning start from him. He's now up 5 spots because he's now gone into the top 3. I said in starting 8th on the grid, he's now into a podium position after 1 lap.
Yeah, he's doing a fantastic job there, and great stuff to see from Jos. But you look behind there, because you've got Leif there, and then you've got Steven Kartner with Coppage, with Morgan, Robertson and Addy all there together. So there's quite a little gaggle there from 5th on down to 9th. So good to see close action once again in the series.
Yeah, big moves from Karkner as well. He's up 7 spots on the first lap and a half or so. I think there's a few drivers who've really benefited from that little bit of carnage we saw in the first couple of corners. They've managed to keep their nose clean, and well, we know Jos van der Ven races well, and Steven Karkner also very quick in race pace. So it's not actually that much of a surprise that they'll make their way towards the front. It's just how quickly they've been able to do it around a short lap like this.
Yeah, they're doing a good job here, and as you mentioned, it's a short lap. Look at Kartner now coming under pressure here from Coppage. Coppage is looking, he's having to go to the outside. Will he dart to the inside? No, not for the time being, into the hairpin. So that move is not on for now, but that queue of traffic behind Kartner. Is Kartner just maybe, well, he started 12th in this, don't forget, so maybe just struggling for that overall pace compared to the rest of them here.
It is a fixed setup series here in 60 Plus Racing Adventures, so there's no difference of downforce levels, there's no difference of spring rates or camber or any of those things. It's not a setup-wise any reason why Karkner might be hunted down by these guys. It just all comes down to driving style and driving skill and how well you adapt to that fixed setup. Everyone are running identical machinery.
Certainly are, as they're heading through the corkscrew once again. These drivers pushing to the limit, really trying hard, and moving away here now is Kartner. Just got a little bit half a second gap between him, but here's one man that we need to look at. Russ Addy is behind Robertson, who of course has got that damage to the rear wing you can see on the screen ahead. So Addy putting the pressure on the Team Morgan driver of Mark Robertson.
Yep, indeed. Addy lost 3 spots from the start, started in 6th, now down in 9th. So trying to make some of that back up, and looking pretty good on board right now, and certainly within touching distance of 5th place just up the road. So to ride along with these guys and pick up some spots, definitely not a bad idea whatsoever. And if you want to see live timing for today's race, just got to head to RaceSpotTV and is it timing? RaceSpot.tv /timing for today.
Big incident.
In the Andretti hairpin, turns 2 and 3, Ralph Camera, the man who had the last qualifying time, trying to make his way up the order a little bit here. We'll see what happens on this replay.
Yeah, we will. We'll try and get a better shot of it than this. But anyway, coming down into the hairpin, a little bit, he just loses control, and then others get caught up in that. And, well, we see 3 cars involved there. They're trying to untangle themselves because they're all caught up together. And Camera just moving forward when there's a car coming through. Just be careful with your rejoin, guys. But back up and running they were initially. But Camera and Wally Molesby have both gone back to the pits.
Yeah, just nowhere for the other driver to go there in that one. Once he'd spun around, had camera up the front of the field though. Rostjan and Lawrence in a little bit of a duel here, and you can see that Lawrence closed that gap up 3/10 on the last time around, following right along in the slipstream of Rostjan, not letting him get away, and these two have bailed to the tune of 5 seconds on the rest of the field. Rostjan and Lawrence, the 2 breakaway leaders of this race, and Lawrence will not let Rostjan get too far away from him though.
Yeah, Roastgen, we saw how well he did every time that we've covered the 60 plus racing adventures. He is a rapid driver, but Bill Lawrence, he's always in and around there, isn't he? He's always up near the front, and they've got lap traffic that they're catching up to as well. So obviously, drivers taking advantage of getting repairs done to the cars, and this could help out Bill if it comes out they catch up to that lap traffic at the wrong point on the track.
Certainly anything that mixes up the status quo would provide him an opportunity to potentially be able to make a pass. And again, this is the fact that it's a short lap around Laguna Seca coming back into play, that the drivers that are leading the race will catch traffic that much more quickly around a short lap like this. It really doesn't take a huge mistake or much off pace from the other drivers for them to be able to catch them after only 6 or 7 laps. We see that Larry Thomas getting well out of the way of their leaders, so no interference for Roastgen or Lawrence that time. You never know what might happen with some of the other drivers that they're still catching.
Yeah, that was good heads-up driving. He realised that he was catching them at a point of the track where he could get caught out and maybe affect these guys. So he got out the way there, went on the dirt a bit. I would have maybe waited for the straight afterwards, but I couldn't understand why he got out the way he did. But Lawrence seems to be a little bit quicker through that section of the track, through the corkscrew, and down towards the penultimate corner here, but then Roastgen just seems to have that edge through the first half of the lap.
Yeah, interesting. There's quite a few high-speed corners and a few low-speed corners around the circuit, and sometimes you see drivers be better at some than the other, and for a short lap it does actually turn up a little bit of variety, like the high-speed kink and the corkscrew, or the very slow, rather technical Andretti hairpin at the end of the front straight here. Riding on board with Leroy Coppage, looking at John Morgan, looking at trying to get an overtake done. Not going to happen this time, and Karkner just in front as well, leading this little train in the battle for 5th place. It's got 5 cars in this little scrap here, sort of at the pointier end of the field.
Yeah, as they come through the right-hander there. Quite a fast right-hander with these cars, even though they've got not that much power. They've got quite a lot of downforce, really, from these wings compared to the size of the car. So, they'll be able to get some really good grip through these higher speed turns like this one here. That one's a really tricky one because the road just dips down in the middle of the corner. It can unsettle your car. And these three, they're still together, trying to put the pressure on Kartner. But Kartner, he's one of those drivers who you can put in the front of the field and can withstand that pressure.
Yeah, indeed. A couple of Canadians running in this, Bill Lawrence in 2nd and Karkner in 5th, and neither of them looking especially flappable right now. John Morgan, though, didn't get a great run there, and he's now got Coppage right up behind him, and actually there's not much to separate all 5 of these cars. You can see Russ Addy in the orange machine still sticking with this group. Mark Robertson in there as well. Suddenly, Karkner gets a little bit more breathing space, and it's John Morgan in the red and black car that needs to be a bit worried about the blue car of Coppage behind, who's peeking in the mirrors, looking this way, looking that way. Big ride over the curb, though, that time. Yeah. I think that's what you were reacting to.
Yeah, that was not nice for that car, because he's run wide again. He's unsettled, and Coppage, well, he stayed ahead of Matt Robertson, but he's really just been really flustered there. There's a car getting out of the way up in front. Oh, no, in fact, that's going to be... I thought that was going to be a change of position there, but it wasn't. It is a car getting out of the way here. But look at this now. Kartner's coming under intense pressure. You saw how Coppage was making mistakes there, but now all of a sudden he's right onto their tail again.
So a fascinating battle for the 5th position right now, and looking very, very interesting. Like, no one has the upper hand here. A few drivers obviously pushing hard to get all of the lap time to try and get a position, to try and stick with the pack. And they're clearly pushing right up to that limit, because we're seeing lots of little errors and running a little bit wide here and there.
Yeah, you can see it's a new season. Drivers taking this opportunity to try and get a really good start to the championship. And you want to get some solid results at the start of a season and set it off well. We saw what happened with John Unsby last season.
Now it's Karkner who runs wide.
Yeah, so we saw last season how John Unsby got a couple of really good good results at the start of the season and was able to be competing for the championship all the way through towards the end of the championship. So it can set you up for a championship run, can these early stages here.
Indeed, and they fly through that kink, and Coppage once again with some wheels in the dirt, but it's side by side. Morgan's going to have the inside into the corkscrew. I think Karkner just yields out on a little bit, can't go around the outside, so John Morgan grabs 5th place. Now Karkner's going to be under pressure from Coppage. Great move from Morgan there, just had a great run through the kink, up the hill, got to the inside for the corkscrew, and you know, you need a really good run up that hill to make that move stick, and he's managed to do it, and Coppage gets right underneath the rear wing of Karkner as well.
It's all about the exit out of this corner though now. That's what's crucial. Yeah, you can make moves into the corner, but it's carry the speed down the front straightaway in towards 1 and the hairpin here. Karkner just running a little bit wide there, but you can afford to do that sometimes because it gives you a wider point to get a later apex for the second part of that hairpin, and it seemed to work that time. But Karkner on the edge, but so too is Coppage, Robertson and Addy are still there, although Addy just running a little bit wide again.
Didn't seem to cost him much time though at all. He's still stuck with the pack and still getting a good slipstream in a couple of opportunities off these guys, and we see that you just can't separate these 5 cars at this moment. We're getting close to halfway in the race, and since the start it's been these 5 stuck together battling over 5th place. You see John Morgan got through on Karkner, hasn't been able to get away down the road, and now suddenly Robertson there taking a look at Coppage. So if anyone can break away, might be John Morgan, but he's still got Karkner right there for the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's just edging away that little bit. Morgan will get a look at the lap gaps at the end of this lap. As again, Coppage just running a little bit wide through the hairpin. I think Karkner now is really focusing on Coppage now for that position as they head down into the hairpin once again. Again, Coppage just getting closer and closer, but not quite close enough. But we'll get a look at those comparison times right about now. You can see John Morgan, he was faster those last 2 laps than Karkner. Now if we compare Karkner to the man behind, Coppage, you can see how Leroy half a second over the last couple of laps, so he is quicker and he's trying to put the pressure on.
He's right there, trying to get all the speed out of the corner. 2 wheels on the dirt once again, but manages to get away with that, and then it's critical the run you get through the kink here. Both of them run it all the way up onto the curb. Good run up the hill, but just not closing quick enough for Coppage. Oh, he gets very, very close under brakes as he goes over the crest there, just manages to avoid any contact, but he's certainly braver on the brakes into the corkscrew than the man in front of Stephen Karkner.
Yeah, he is, and all this time that he's sitting behind Karkner, he'll be just watching what he's doing in front of his Karkner, see where he's stronger and see where he can maybe potentially line up a move, because this, you know, it's all well and good having somebody who can just suddenly just throw one down the inside on a driver, but there's also time for a thinking person's move as he's getting closer under braking once again. I tell you what, he's pushing Karkner all the way here in this race. Is Coppage. It's absolutely fantastic to watch. There is other battles on track, but this is, I would say, the closest one between a number of cars.
Yeah, certainly it's been very exciting. This battle, a little bit of back and forth, and again, John Morgan doesn't get away. Up the lead of the race, though, Roastgen has managed to break 2 seconds on Bill Lawrence, and the last lap around from Roastgen was the fastest lap of the race. A 1:17.264. Of course, you can go to RaceSpotTV/timing and you'd already know that, but Roastgen now starting to stamp his authority over the lead of the race, and then Bill Lawrence in second there. As you can see, Van der Ven rolling around in third, Leif Hellberg in fourth, and then 5th place.
Oh!
That's this battle here. Coppage around.
That shows you how easy it is to make a mistake there at the corkscrew. We'll have a look on the replay here. Leroy's dropped down to 10th place in all of this, and we've just brought him back a little bit too far, but we're getting towards the corkscrew now. So here's where the mistake will be, and it'll be on the exit of the corkscrew here. Through the left, that's okay. Oh, and it just spins up the rear tyres just as it goes over over a bump there, and he had to patiently wait for one driver to go past. Goes over the dirt. He's giving plenty of room because there goes another driver.
Yeah, just the way that drops away on the exit of the corner there. He must have just held a little bit too much throttle at that point, spun up the wheels and spat him around. Need to give it just a little bit of a breathe on the throttle there, even if you feel like you can straight line the exit. It's unfortunate for Coppage, but it shows, he's pushing really, really hard. So is Mark Robertson, who gets into the wall. Mark Robertson into the wall. So these guys really struggling, and there's a lot more damage for Robertson than there is for Coppage. That is a very, very ugly looking Pro Mazda right here. Mark Robertson, see, coming into the corner. Does he just get the wheels on the dirt on the exit? He does. He just commits to keeping the throttle flat on the exit of the corner, running a bit too wide, and it's just no grip out there. Sends him spinning around straight into the inside wall. Hard contact, and unfortunately that's almost race done for Mark Robertson. That car is done.
It is race done. He's on pit road. That's the end of his race. So hard times there for Mark Robertson. He did have that rear wing damage, don't forget, from this hairpin on lap 1. So maybe that came into effect a little bit, that he wasn't quite feeling it. But, and this is the beauty of this series, is that these drivers get another opportunity in after this race finishes, because there's another race, and it's the best point scoring from each of these, from the individual races, is what gives them their results.
Yeah, indeed. So it's certainly not all over for Mark Robertson in this round, but it probably is in this race. We look at 19th place. Joel Martin's trying to catch up and pass Roberto De Filippis, and De Filippis runs a little bit wide through the Andretti hairpin, but again gets the throttle down well. And it's another one of those corners where, there's 10, 20 potential racing lines that work. Some people will double apex it, some will miss the first apex and get good speed out the corner on the second apex, and everything in between, just like Sunset Bend or the Carousel at Road America, or you name it.
Yeah, there's Sunset Bend is famously known as the corner with 1,000 lines, as Joel Martin pushing the levels of adhesion to the limit and then beyond. There, going off track into the corkscrew, and he's got Richard Varley not that far behind as well. So a nice little 3-car train here, as everything's sort of just calmed down towards the front there. So we'll keep an eye on this battle, give these guys a bit of air time. Oh dear, Martin goes off at the penultimate corner. I think he just maybe carried a little bit too much speed there, and he seems to be struggling here. We'll get a look on board.
Yeah, indeed, so down the hill, and it's all the way down the hill from the top of the corkscrew. It's into this right-hander. The rear pretty loose on entry, and the car slides all the way through the corner. You just can't quite catch it till after the apex. A little bit of a trip across the dirt, through the grass and through the sand, but no damage done to the car, which is better than can be said for some of the other incidents we've seen so far. So the race continues for Joel Martin, although he loses a little bit of touch with Roberto De Filippis and Richard Varley, who he was in the middle of the battle with.
Yeah, he does. We'll draw our attention forward to 10th and 11th place, and Bob Kern and Franz Brink, these two, about half a second between them. They're pretty much the closest battle on track, although I will keep an eye on the timing screen, because that battle for 5th place is getting a little bit closer. So we'll keep an eye on these two just for the time being. But yeah, these two, again, it's another couple of cars that have worked their way through the field, 16th and 14th respectively for Kern and for Brink. So they've just worked their way through any incidents and have gotten that through, and we've had an incident further up, and that's Kartner.
Nose first in the wall in the first sector of the circuit. Stephen Karkner has had an issue while trying to pursue John Morgan for 5th place, and he may have just kept that out of the barrier. I'm not sure, and then driven it in his way around. He was trying so close to stick with John Morgan to get that position done, and he's lost the rear of the car in this corner. Just put it in, rear hasn't stuck on the exit, and then around he goes. Heads up, locking up all 4 tyres, stamping on that brake pedal, prevents the car from sliding into the inside wall like we've seen others do.
Yeah, it's That's good, and I wasn't maybe impressed with just touching the tyre barrier when trying to spin it around, but there you go, it doesn't always go your way when trying to recover. So yes, unfortunately that's sort of scuppered our little battle there for 5th place. I'm sure John Morgan will be happy with that because it gives him a bit of breathing space, but yeah, we just lose that battle there. Paul Stump is on a bit of a comeback here. You can see the damage on his car on the front wing, and he's battling for 15th place with Gianni Respaldo.
Yeah, indeed, we saw first lap issues for Paul Stump, some pretty heavy contact and also some other little spins. So from right up the pointy end, 3rd on the grid, to down to 16th, but now trying to make some of that up, and you can see that the lap times really aren't too shabby for Paul Stump there. Pulled 1.3 seconds out of Gianni Respaldo on the last lap, and with form like that, you'd expect a move to be pretty imminent in this battle. Pressure that Stump is going to start putting on Gianni Respaldo, and Stephen Karkner is just up the road after his spin as well. So plenty of drivers trying to recover their race in the remaining 4 or 5 laps.
Yeah, absolutely. About 4.5 laps to go here at the moment for these drivers. Heading through the cake and really going up towards the corkscrew. As we've seen John Morgan earlier on, who made that move on Kartner into the corkscrew. A little bit loose from Stump there on the exit of the corkscrew. That's lost him a 10th or 2, but he's still keeping the pressure on here as they're going through the penultimate corner into the final corner.
Yeah, Stump was really quick through there as well. That closed up a lot of the gap before the final corner, and then all the way out onto the AstroTurf for Stump, stretching out the exit of the corner. And I think that Stump is looking very quick, but maybe missing just a little bit of the straight line speed. I imagine that the mangled front wing adds just a little bit more drag, and that's what it looks like is giving Stump some of the troubles here, is that the car is quick through the corners, but once it gets up into 5th or 6th gear, it struggles against the drag. And so places like up the hill towards the corkscrew and along the pit straight, that looks like Stump just isn't quick enough there to keep closing the gap on Respaldo. Whereas through the corners and on the braking zones, Stump obviously very, very quick, qualified 3rd, and so you see through the corner there closes a lot, but when it comes to trying to get the move done in a straight line, the car just isn't willing.
Yeah, that's it, and you just think that there's not enough long straights here to make the draft effect work. So there's a lot of corners, which Paul seems to be really comfortable in. It's just down that front straightaway where would be the best point to get a draft and to get that slipstream. It's just not quite working out for him because of that damage, but he won't be too desperate to make a move, I don't think, because as we mentioned before, you can go for it again in the second race of the evening. Here, as we've got 4 to go for these drivers, the leader, by the way, 4 seconds ahead of Bill Lawrence in second.
Yeah, indeed. So Roastion starting to run away with it just a little bit. Broken the toe, getting away, and Stump, again, was really, really quick through some of the slower corners, but I think just straight line speed is missing from this minty kind of car, and it's not giving him the opportunity to take a run out of a corner, follow it down the straight, and then overtake on the way into the corner. It's going to have to take a big dive bomb or something else for it to be possible to get through, or a mistake from Respaldo, because the car of Stump just isn't quick enough with that damage that he's carrying on the front wing.
I wouldn't have said minty green, I would have said more turquoise, or maybe aqua blue, perhaps, but yeah, you make a very good point there, that how he is just struggling with that top speed there, and he's just not able to make it work. I mean, we'll bring the graphic up here and we'll go on board. You can look at his speed in Ks, bearing in mind that he's in the slipstream here. So across the line, reaches 200 Ks, there you go. Into the braking zone, 213 Ks, even in the slipstream for Paul Stump. So he really is struggling for that top speed.
Yeah, I was watching it on my timing as well, and the whole way down the straight, even though Paul Stump was right in that slipstream, Gianni Rispaldo was a solid 2 or 3 kilometres an hour quicker all down the straight. Looking at 9th and 10th though, because Bob Kern is going to have a job on his hands to keep Bruce Poole behind, and France Brink is closing up behind that as well, so just 2 laps to go. A little bit of a battle forming up for 9th, 10th and 11th.
Yeah, it's great to see this, how Poole putting the pressure on, trying to get the move done on Bob Kern. And you can see how he's just washing out a little bit there. He's getting close to the back of Kern's car, under braking. Not quite getting the runner out the corner, but with 2 to go here, anything could happen here for these two. In the slipstream, what can he do here?
You see, he definitely closes, especially once they come over the crest, and he's going to go wider, try and get the nose to the inside. Not going to work on Kern. Kern holds on to 9th for the moment. Bruce Poole, you can see, is just trying some different lines. A little bit tighter, a bit closer to the apex there, but it's going to be tough to pass here. Roestgen, there's a problem for Stefan Roestgen from the lead of the race. What's happened?
I don't know. That's what we're about to find out here. But this is your race leader, or he was your race leader. Don't say it's going to be through the kink. No, not through the kink. Is it going to be the corkscrew then? Stefan Roestgen, what on earth has happened to you, my friend? Oh, that's unusual. I want to have another quick look at that before we see that he almost hits like a bump in the road there or something. Whether he hit a curb wrong. Yeah, he's hit the curb wrong.
Wow, just a bit too far to the right-hand side that time, and with a comfortable lead with 2 laps to go, Stefan Roestgen has a big issue. Nose first into the tyre barriers after just getting a little bit too aggressive with the curbs through the corkscrew, and that is a catastrophe because he'd looked very, very strong from pole to lead just about every lap until 2 laps to go. And then race over in race 1 for Stefan Roestgen. That is huge. Yeah, we do. It's Leif Hellberg, it's John Morgan, it's Russ Addy, and that's 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Bill Lawrence leads the race with 1 corner to go, and he's been gifted this win almost, this error from Stefan Roestgen. But he will not look a gift horse in the mouth, and he will cross the checkered flag after 22 laps, and he will take the win in race 1, round 1 of this season of 60 plus racing adventures. Off to a great start in his championship campaign is Bill Lawrence taking the maximum points. We look backwards, Morgan and Addy, and Morgan has just enough drive out of the final corner that he'll be the last car on the podium. Russ Addy will get 4th, and Leif Hellberg just in the background gets 5th place.
We're going to have a look at a replay, and I'm hoping that I can bring it up here. Bruce Poole, something happened to him on that last lap, so we'll look at, where's Bruce Poole? There he is. So this is on the final lap, is this? We're going to have to look at that. There was a lock up there for the, I think it was Bob Kern, and then Poole. Oh, there's contact with the back marker by the looks of things. Oh, absolute nightmare for Poole. That puts him out the race and drops him all the way down. Once my timing catches up, I think it's going to be about 18th place in the end.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing as well. That's the car on the inside got a bit twitchy, a little bit of contact with him, and that sent him right off. No grip on the dirt, and he goes straight into the tyre barriers, and survival has definitely been the word of the day in race 1.
Certainly has. I mean, we can see all the drivers that have spent time on the pits. So that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 drivers who have all made their way down to pit road that first race. But still, plenty of action, and we've got another race to go yet.
Yep, indeed. So after all of that drama in race 1, this is how they've finished up. Your winner was Bill Lawrence in the end, 6.4 seconds clear of Jos van der Ven in second place, and then John Morgan in third, Russ Addy in fourth, Leif Hellberg in fifth. Pretty close battle. We go a little bit further down to Andrew Fiedler and France Brink, who battled over sixth place, finished in that order with Lewis Cannell in eighth, and then Urs Muller with ninth place, and Stephen Karkner finished in the top 10.
11th place for Bob Kern. In the end, they were pole stumped 12th after that lap one. Bit of a nightmare at the hairpin. Gianni Raspaldo, Richard Cola, 13th and 14th with Roberto De Filippis. In 15th, only just about a tenth of a second ahead of Richard Varley across the line, with Joel Martin the last of your lead lap runners. Then one lap down, Bruce Poole, Paolo Bonacera and Mark Robertson. With the resty field, Rose Jen, as we saw, having that incident, Leroy Coppage, Wally Moresby, Bruce Granheim, Matt Lisson, Jared Florison, Jack Turner, Larry Thomas and Ralph Kemmerer, all them at the end there not finishing.
So that's race 1 run and done, but we do have a couple of those drivers from race 1 that we can talk to, and I think it's only fair we start with our race winner, Bill Lawrence, when I can
almost 4 seconds
in to chat with us. And so our winner was Bill Lawrence, and he's standing by with us now. Congratulations, your season, it looks like, is off to a good start.
Yeah, I couldn't be happier, but I'm not sure what happened to Stefan. He had that in the bag for sure.
And how do you find the conditions out there? Because we saw quite a few incidents, a couple of drivers like Stefan Rostron losing it by themselves. Hot track, does that make the car just a little bit twitchy, a bit hard to keep under control?
Well, I'm not sure if it's a heat or not. There's a couple corners here that, if you guys have driven the track, you know are super dangerous, especially turn 6 and the corkscrew. And I mean, there's others here too, but turn 6 is a nightmare.
So what were you thinking in this race once you were running just a couple seconds behind Stefan Rostron? Are you just content to grab that second place, and then it's been a surprise for you to get this win? What was your strategy for running the race? What was your mindset?
Well, I spoke with my teammate, one of my teammates, before the race, Mark Robertson. We're on Team Morgan. And I said to him my strategy would be just to run the high 17s. If I could keep consistent in there, I'd be happy. There's no way I can touch Stefan. He's just in a different league. So I was just lucky today.
Well, winner in race 1, can you back it up in race 2? What can you do in the last race of this round?
Well, I hope to do the same thing. We'll see what happens.
Best of luck, Bill, and if we're both lucky, I'll chat with you again after race 2.
Thanks very much, David.
Drivers now.
Our second place finisher is Jos van der Ven, and he moved up 6 positions from qualifying to finish second and on the podium, and Paul is going to talk with him.
Yeah, I chose the outside of turn 1 and 2, and that was a good position, I guess, because I won 4 positions in that 2 corners alone. Well, to be honest, I didn't practice much, so I always have to get into the race, and I do it on my own way, let's say so. Well, I was a little bit faster towards the end of the race, so I think I had the same lap times as Bill, so I hope I can keep up with him the next race.
Joining us here then, Jos, but before you go, anyone you want to give a quick mention to?
As always, to my family who always support me, and of course the organizers of this league who all do a great job.
Well, Jos, all the best for the second round, second race of the round.
Thank you, Paul.
Over to you, David.
Yeah, well, we did have third place man John Morgan hanging around, but he's sort of disappeared. So I think just our top two will do after race one. It was very exciting. Maybe not so much at the pointy end of the field, although there was a late sting in the tail there. But certainly throughout the field, lots of great racing and 60-plus racing adventures like we are used to seeing. And everything that the drivers have learnt from this race about where they can battle, where they can pass, and where is a little bit dangerous, I'm sure they'll all apply to race 2, which will be coming up in not too long. I think we're going to have to take a little break here on RaceSpot, and we'll be back soon with race 2 of this new season of 60-plus racing adventures.
Beaver, voice of the Lucas Oil Off-Road Racing Series. Introducing Pro 2 and Pro 4 trucks on iRacing. Game on!
Growing up as a kid in Oklahoma, where I'm from, the Chili Bowl is the biggest race that we have. The Chili Bowl has kind of been my favorite race of the year. Growing up a dirt racer in Oklahoma, that's kind of the holy grail.
this is Jim Beaver, voice of the Lucas Oil Off-Road Racing Series. Introducing Pro 2 and Pro 4 trucks on iRacing. Game on!
Growing up as a kid in Oklahoma, where I'm from, the Chili Bowl is the biggest race that we have. The Chili Bowl has kind of been my favorite race of the year. Growing up a dirt racer in Oklahoma, that's kind of the holy grail.
Welcome back to 60 Plus Racing Adventures here at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna, Seca. Race 2 coming up right now, and it's qualifying to set the grid for this second race of the event. Every driver gets 2 flying laps to put in their best time to see where they can qualify. 28 cars for this race so far in the session, and again, track temperatures quite hot. You see it there on your screen, 43 degrees Celsius, 110 degrees Fahrenheit, still partly cloudy and not much wind to speak of. And we saw that the hot track produced some troubles for some of the drivers in race 1. So certainly the drivers will have learnt from that, and hopefully we'll have a cleaner race here in race 2. We'll see what they can do in qualifying. Looking at Stefan Rostjen, your pole sitter from race 1, crashed out with 2 laps to go in race 1. He'll be trying to repeat the qualifying, but not try and repeat that error that he made. So he's on his first flying lap here of 2. See what he can do, where he can line up on the grid. As a reminder, I am David Haynes here. Alongside me is Paul Smith. And what we've got is live timing at RaceSpotTV/timing. So during the race you can check that out, see where your favourite driver is going, see what the lap times look like, check it, the gaps, all that kind of thing. And Paul, you're looking here at Stefan Rostjen. He'll knows that he's got the pace over 1 lap, just needs to put it together over 22 in the race.
That's it. You know, it's easy to lead and to be first on the first lap, but you've got to be first on the last lap, and that is not what happened for Stefan. So he'll be looking for a better result here as we're heading in towards the penultimate corner already. It's fast and frenetic lap here around, as he pointed out, WeatherTech Raceway here at Laguna Seca. But through the final corner he goes, and so by the end of his first lap, the question is, will it be as quick a second lap? Because 17.614 is the opening lap time.
is also the first man to put a time on the board, so it goes straight to number 1, and it's stuck there for the moment, as now we see Mark Robertson, Louis Kennel and Bruce Granheim also set times. Some drivers with 2 flying laps will try and put in a banker lap, just a clean lap for the first lap, and then go all out, risk it for the biscuit on lap 2. Roastgen's come out of the gates flying, and you can see 7/10 clear of just about everyone else in the field. Paul Stump comes across to go second. Looking at Leroy Coppedge, who doesn't have a time yet, but with 6 minutes left in the session, still has time to set his 2 laps. And again, another driver looking for a little bit of redemption in race 2, and a reminder about the format is we have 2 races. The championship points that the drivers get is from whichever was their best result of the 2 races. So some drivers definitely need a good race in race 2, otherwise they will be walking away with not as many points as they definitely would have the pace for. Coppedge is one of those drivers seeking redemption.
Absolutely. So to give an example of that, Bill Lawrence, he won the first race, and if Stefan Roastgen or anyone else was to win the second race, both that driver and Bill Lawrence would be equal in first place in the championship. So it goes like that. That's only it's only unique to week 1, where you get to see that everything sort of pans out after that as the second lap times are coming in for people. So Robertson improving, Jos van der Ven up there as well. Bill Lawrence into 3rd now, as Leroy Coppedge finally comes in 10th place at the end of that lap.
Yeah, indeed. I think there was a bit of an issue for Stefan Roastgen on his second flying lap, and it hasn't counted. He hasn't set one. So for the first lap, the banker lap, he's had to rely on. And Paul Stump has gone quicker on his second lap, gotten a little bit closer, but Roastgen still 3/10 clear at number 1. Bob Kern is pretty quick.
He's on his
at some
outlap.
points.
He's on his outlap at the moment, so he's going for a late qualifying. Thomas Byram as well, a slow outlap from him. So we'll see how he gets on this first of his qualifying laps here. So a few drivers taking a different approach. Some he's again slow coming through here, so I don't think he's quite up to pace this lap. I think Thomas will maybe more on pace on the second lap of this one, but different drivers taking a different approach. Here's Joel Martin. He got an invalidated first lap, so this is going to be his final qualifying lap, and he needs to set a qualifying time here. Kartner up into second place, only 1/10 off of your pole time.
Yeah, indeed. So what was a comfortable margin up there for Roastgen has been eroded away by some of these drivers going quicker on their second lap that Roastgen did not have to be able to defend. So Kartner goes second, Stump looking at 3rd right now, and Bob Kern out there without a time yet. We've seen a few drivers have had some unclean laps. They've gone off circuit at some point, gotten it off track, and that invalidates the lap time here in iRacing qualifying. So certainly you've got to keep it within the bounds of play on your lap, otherwise it won't count. And I think that may have been what happened on lap 2 for Stefan Roastgen, pushing it just a little bit too hard. The temptation is always there, but you've got to make sure that your lap is clean and within the margins. A little bit of a lock up there from Bob Kern, but just shows how hard he was pushing on the brakes into the corkscrew. This looks like a pretty quick lap, but it's also looked tidy and within the white lines so far.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to get that, with a qualifying like this, you want to get that first lap in, get that banker in, and then really push it on your second lap. Get a feel for the track conditions on the first lap. Now, luckily, these drivers are pretty much racing in the same conditions as last race, as Bob Kern comes across the line and sets a qualifying time for 17th. But, yeah, they've got used to the conditions. Oh, and that's what can happen when you start pushing it, and he loses control. So that's going to be the end of Bob's qualifying.
Yeah, indeed, he won't be able to improve on this lap after that. And it just goes to show, he drove within the limits on the first lap, and then on the second lap knew that he'd either have to go quicker or not bother. And he's pushed it just a little bit too hard into the hairpin there, lost control of the rear. Here's Russ Addy. He's going to go across the line, and I think he's just using this, using this time for a little bit more warm-up, a little bit more practice. And of course, you don't have to bring the car into the pits after you've done your 2 flying laps. you can stay out there, but you're just not going to be setting any valid qualifying lap times. Russ Addy has decided just wants to feel out the conditions, feel out the track temperatures a little bit more, and just stay warmed up for the race coming up in a couple of minutes' time.
And he was looking really racy in that first race, wasn't he? He sort of stuck to the back of that gaggle of cars from 5th. And it all worked out for him because he just stayed there and others kept on having incidents in front of him. So he ended up moving forward through the field, did Russ. So a good first race day. He'll be wanting just a solid result again in the second one, but maybe try and push forward that little bit more. But you have to say, better qualifying from Jos van der Ven in 6th place. He started 8th in the last race. So he'll be looking to get another monster start in this one. But again, your usual suspects of Robertson, Stump, Lawrence up there as well. Leif Hellberg has really come on, I feel, since last season. He's really sort of stepped up a gear here in this championship. But Stephen Kartner, we were surprised that he qualified so poorly in the first race. But now here in this race, 2nd place, that's not bad going.
Yeah, indeed. And look at some of the margins there in qualifying, though. The difference between Robertson in 4th and Van der Ven in 6th is only just a hundredth of a second there. You know, you're looking at 0.422 compared to 0.435, and it's very, very close with Lawrence splitting them down the middle. And then you also got to look at things like the gap between Poole in 8th and Brink in 9th. I mean, the tiniest amount of margins can mean 2 or 3 spots on the grid right there. That's very, very close indeed between some of those drivers.
Well, you look at that Lawrence and Van der Ven, it's 1,000th between them. That's how close they are between the two of them there. So, you know, it's going to be a close race, is this one. And hopefully, with it being a new season, they're all getting finding the feet again. Hopefully, they get off to a nice clean start here today. But we're all set then for the grid here then.
Yep, indeed. 29 drivers, 25 of them with qualifying times. And this is how they're going to be. On pole for the second time, Stefan Roostjen. Stephen Kartner has 2nd place on the front row with him. And the next row is going to be Paul Stump, once again starting out of 3rd place. Can't separate the Germans from their starting positions there. Mark Robertson gets 4th place ahead of Bill Lawrence, is going to start in 5th. Jos van der Ven in 6th. Leif Hellberg in 7th. Bruce Poole has 8th position.
Franz Brink then 9th with Andrew Fiedler in 10th. Russ Addy 11th with Leroy Coppage down in 12th place after an interesting first race. Lewis Cannell 13th ahead of Richard Varley. 14th with Bruce Granheim, not being on form today, in 15th place ahead of Jared Florison. And then Bobka and Jack Turner round out your top 18 with Gianni Rispaldo, Richard Coulomb in your top 20.
And your last drivers with qualifying times are Urs Muller, Roberto De Filippis, Joel Martin, Fred McIntosh, and Thomas Byram in 25th. Then Antonio Reyes, Carl Bogle, Wally Molesby, and Mark Lasson, all in the session, able to take the start of the race, but did not set a valid qualifying time. They're behind the pace car once again for a tour of the circuit. And then it'll be time to go racing a 22-lap race once again, same length as race 1. And Stefan Roostjen, after a horrible finish to race 1, starting on pole in race 2, looking to make amends for that error. He'll try to avoid any mistakes and any issues in this race. But the pressure that I think Stephen Kartner, Paul Stump and Mark Robertson behind him will be able to exert certainly give him something to think about. We know Kartner can be very, very quick, and he's going to start on the front row to give Roostjen something to think about and someone to race.
Absolutely, and hopefully, as I mentioned, we get that cleaner race start this time around, and that there's more than just one driver challenge Roostjen at the front, and hopefully they can all give us a really good race. So that first race was a good race, but you know, it was more those drivers getting back into the swing of things after a week off. But here we are, and we're into the swing of things now. Race 2 it always throws up a little bit of a unique result, does this one.
Yeah, indeed. There's some drivers with the result already banked from round 1, so race 1, that they need to improve on. There's some drivers with no result from race 1 who desperately need a finish in race 2. There's different drivers out there with different things to race for. Some who can't afford to take any risks, and some who can, and that's an interesting dynamic. It's like up front here, Roastgen cannot afford any risks, but some others, like Bill Lawrence, can afford to take some risks. So that is going to be interesting to watch. For 22 more laps of Laguna Seca, the pace car pulls in. Roastgen and Karkner on the front row make their way around, and Roastgen is ready to get racing. The green flag waves, so let's go racing at Laguna Seca. Big jump from Roastgen, but it's 3 wide in the background there. Jos van der Ven already made up 2 spots. Now imagine, is he going to get any more into the hairpin? 3 wide. Paul Stump is the meat in a sandwich there. Everyone at the right at the front here has gotten through cleanly so far. Coppage all the way out on the dirt, but manages to keep a hold of it and keep it pointing the right way.
It was Coppage who made a monster start then, 12 up to 6. That's one heck of a result there for him to start with. We've got an instant further back. Jack Turner is one of those drivers involved. And we'll have a look back at this as they head on through. So it's going to be on the exit of this hairpin, heading into the right-hander, where we see the incident happen for Jack, who's decided to head on to pit road. And we're going to stay on the replay because I've just seen that Leroy Coppage has got involved in something. As there's the incident right there for Jack Turner.
5 or so cars get tangled in that one, unfortunately. Leroy Coppage would say a lightning start from him, 12th up to 6th, but on the first lap it's come undone because that car is back in the pit lane. Here's the replay of what's happened. Is it down here into the kink? My goodness, he nearly gets that thing into space with how hard he clipped that inside curb there. All 4 wheels in the air, a lot of damage on the car, and a great start turns to catastrophe for Leroy Coppage. And that's a lot of damage, and we know that that's a tough corner. That kink there, it's a little bit blind, the track drops away, and he's desperately misjudged his turn-in point on lap 1.
Anyone who ever doubts the iRacing physics model just needs to look at that incident and look at the incident that happened in the Formula 3 at Monza this weekend, and see that actually iRacing have got it pretty darn right, if you ask me. But yeah, we've got on board then with your man in 4th place, Jos van der Ven. And running wide there was Karkner ahead of them. Stefan Roastgen has already broken the draft. He's almost 2 seconds ahead as Jos goes around.
He's locked up the rear brakes there on the way into the corkscrew, avoided hitting anyone. He's turned the steering wheel so he didn't hit the drivers of Karkner and Robertson in front, but a great start turns into a horrible start for Jos van der Ven, who's dropping positions. And here's what happens. He's right up the rear wing of Mark Robertson, takes a slightly different line, and there's a bit of a crest there. He's gone over the crest, locked up the rear tyres, and around he's gone. Lucky to keep it out of the barriers, but it's cost him a huge amount of time.
Yeah, absolutely. He's 18 seconds behind your race leader.
There is actually a little bit of damage, a slight tweak to the front wing there on the car. Now, not a huge damage and not as much as we saw Paul Stump carrying, but he'll just get away with that, but he's lost swathes of time.
Absolutely. You've got your leader's pulling away hand over fist, so it's his battle for second place that we've got on here. Karkner and Robertson. We stump about a second and a half between these, away from these two, and he's dragging a queue of cars along with him. So got a good couple of battles. Look at this run through the kink there for Robertson, heading into the corkscrew. Karkner squeezing a little bit, and Robertson having to back off. But that's going to allow, apart from that traffic to be in there, that's going to allow Stump to just catch up that little bit.
Yeah, Karkner once again was a little bit weak through the kink, and now Robertson runs all the way wide, gathers it up, loses just a little bit of time. The car he's got immediately behind him is Leroy Coppage, who is 1 lap down, will now pull out of the way to not impede Paul Stump, who's dragging the train of Bill Lawrence, Bruce Poole, Andrew Fiddler, and Russ Addy. So great battle involving just about everyone in the top 10 with the exception of Stefan Rostjan. So that's what's going on right there. Karkner, very quick in some points, but just no confidence through the kink. And that's where Robertson and others have had the opportunity to try and challenge him. Right on board with Bruce Poole running out of 6th place. And he's looking forward at Bill Lawrence. And Poole also gets the inside tyres over one of those red curbs that sort of mark the apex. And we've seen you've got to be careful taking too much out of those curbs because they are quite tall, quite aggressive.
And we saw that on lap 1 for Leroy Coppage. So you've really got to be careful here as you're going up the hill once again. It's almost a mountain as this section, the way it raises up as it's run a little bit deep through the corkscrew there. Manages to get away with it. Didn't have the end up catching the curb like Stefan Rostjan did in race 1. But Poole now coming under pressure from Fiddler behind.
Yeah, we saw the inside front tyre lock up a little bit as well, so he struggled to get the car stopped, and that did put him a little bit deep. Fiddler couldn't get the overtake done, but he comes out of the last corner with pretty reasonable momentum, and Poole will start be getting less of the slipstream in front as Bill Lawrence gets a little bit further away from him. That's when Poole might become vulnerable, when the car behind has a slipstream, but he doesn't have one from the car in front.
Yeah, that's it. You then become vulnerable to attack, and but luckily for Poole, there is limited opportunities to take advantage of that slipstream as Fiddler running wide. He's liking a lot of that dirt, is Andrew, right now, and you don't want to get too much dirt. Oh, we've got a car running wide there. That's Karkner.
That must be Karkner. Yeah, Karkner's once again gone way too deep into one of those corners. He's lost 2 spots. Robertson's through, Stump is through, and Karkner's just through the long left-hander at the bottom of the hill here. He's just pushed out too wide, missed the apex, and it's just understeer all the way through. And he has had quite an off-road ride there, and you can see 2 cars swing through. He loses those spots, and Stump nearly had a bit of a wiggle through the kink as well, though. I guess he was a little bit offline compared to where he'd normally be turning in, and that's caught him off guard. Poole has lost a spot to Addy.
Yeah, absolutely. So Russ Addy again showing a really good display of racecraft to move forward through the field. Started 11th, now up into 7th position. Fiddler's up to 6th as well in front of these guys. So a really good display. And Poole, yeah, he lost 2 positions on that lap, did Bruce, so back down to where he started. So plenty of action in this one. It's given us a great second race, is this one, and these drivers, now they've got the feel of the track, they're really giving it some.
Yep, indeed. Stefan Rostjan's just set the fastest lap of the race of 1:17.2. He's flying along, and it's what he was like last race. He just can't afford any errors this time, though. It's Robertson, Stump, Karkner, Lawrence, Fiddler. Fantastic battle from second on down. While Rostjan checks out, Robertson leads a little bit of a pack. Yeah, Bruce Poole's lost another spot because Leif Hellberg's gotten through that time. Probably a good run through the kink, it would look like. We're looking at Poole, and here he comes through the kink. He just gets a bit too much of that curb on the inside, goes out wide and onto the dirty stuff, and Hellberg does not need a second invitation to grab a position away, and he had to fight to hold on to it.
Yeah, we came back to live pictures as they were side by side, and here comes Poole then to the outside. He can make it work around the outside here into the hairpin. Late on the brakes, is he too late? Yes, although you get a good run through the middle part. It's the exit which is important. Can he hold that inside line for the right-hander? No, because Leif Hellberg will chop his nose off and say, no, sunshine, that's my position.
So a great battle here between Hellberg and Poole. Poole obviously lost out on that spot and now wants it back, and I think might have a little bit more pace than Hellberg in some points, but obviously not quite as consistent because we have seen some little errors from Poole, and that makes this a great back and forth battle between these two. This time through the kink, both of them are a little bit more stable, a little bit closer to the optimal racing line, a bit more in control. I've seen that the braking zone into the corkscrew in cars like these can be quite difficult as well. It's not quite a straight line, and it's not flat either. Both of these guys have made it work this time. Poole is still right up underneath Hellberg.
Yeah, absolutely, putting the pressure on then into that final corner. And this is where Poole needs to make the most of that exit. Not quite got as good an exit, I don't think, and he's just dropped back that little bit. So he's got the slipstream, but it's not close enough to make it count. And that's why it's so crucial to get the run out of that last corner. Diving in on the into that last corner is quick going in, but you're slow coming out, and you need to carry that speed all the way down the straight, because it isn't the longest of straightaways down in towards the hairpin.
Yeah, indeed. The slipstream not quite as critical here as it's been in some other rounds of 60 plus racing adventures and in the Pro Mazda. Look at the battle for the last step on the podium. Stump ahead of Karkner, and Karkner was under pressure from Lawrence for a little bit there. Lawrence is Karkner, obviously started second on the grid, now running back in fourth, and we've seen that a few little times he's looked to struggle, and Lawrence going to try and put the pressure on him for the moment.
Yeah, it's lacking that consistency, I think, for Stephen Karkner. He's got pace, we know that. Look at this qualifying time, he was only 10th off of Stefan Rosgen, but there's that consistency that you need in races like this. We need to be able to put those lap in after lap in. When you look at Stefan Rosgen, he's just set a new fastest lap again. He's 7.6 seconds ahead of Mark Robertson, who's leading this gaggle of cars.
Yeah, Rosgen even further checked out than he was last time. You remember in race 1, for at least a couple of laps, Bill Lawrence was able to ride along with him. Several cars involved in the Andretti hairpin at the end of the front straight. Lewis Cannell, one of them. There's a few other cars involved in there. I think we'll see in front here a bit of an attempt at an overtake. That is just to steal Martin Brundle's phrase, a day late, $1 short on the brakes there, and Richard Varley tangled up in that as well. The number 7 car was Jared Florison, is the one who was, I think, maybe just a little bit too bold on the brakes into the hairpin that time, and unfortunately 3 cars come together. Bit of damage for all of those guys.
I always like to say ambitious. A little bit ambitious on the brakes there, and yeah, just catching out. And unfortunately that's affected 3 drivers there as that instant, so nightmare for them. But look at this battle then for second place. It's Robertson, Stump, Kartner, Lawrence, and Andrew Fiedler has been catching up to this group as well, so he's starting to put pressure on Bill Lawrence at the back of this pack. So interesting to see how these guys have all been sort of holding each other up, and that's allowing others to come into this, as we've got a car well and truly getting out of the way. That's Thomas Byron.
Yeah, indeed, for the second time we see a nice 5-car battle inside the top 10, and that's always awesome to see, a great battle, plenty of drivers back and forth, but also when it's towards the pointy end of the field and for a good points result. So Robertson continues to lead the train, and we saw on one of the earlier shots a couple of laps ago, Fiedler was definitely there behind Lawrence when Lawrence was trying to put the pressure on Karkner, which he's doing again this time into the corkscrew, but nothing to do on this particular lap. So these 5 all sticking together. Robertson and Stump have just a little bit of breathing room over Karkner and Lawrence, and then Fiedler with a great view of the whole battle, ready to pounce if anyone makes a mistake or tangles together. And Stump good on the brakes into the final corner as well, and it's all about maximizing that exit, especially these rotary cars. Not a lot of torque, although they do rev all that way up high.
Yeah, absolutely. As you mentioned, just that little bit of a gap just pulled out between the front 2 of this group of cars. But right now, Stephen Kartner doing a good job. He's still being that slipstream. As you mentioned earlier, it's not the most important slipstream to have around here, but it does certainly help at this track. But, well, Stump putting the pressure on, half a second behind Mark Robertson. Robertson hoping for a better result than last time out, because last time he was in the wall to the left there on shot, so he'll be looking for a decent result here. We're almost at the halfway point of this race already. This one's flown by here, David.
Yeah, indeed. And one thing to add to a point earlier about the slipstream is that because it's a fixed setup, everyone's running maybe a little bit more downforce than some people would consider in an open setup session. And what that does is that when everyone's running a little bit more downforce, the slipstream becomes more important than open setup. There's no sort of war over who will run the least downforce and then be difficult to pass in a straight line. Everyone running identical downforce, and that actually helps with the slipstream because it's just a little bit more drag than you'd otherwise consider running in these Pro Mazda cars.
Yeah, absolutely. You make that very valid point, as always, David, in these commentaries. Worth pointing out there's his top 8 on screen. Stefan Rosgen 7.5 seconds ahead. I think he's just calmed down his lap times now. He's about a second and a third off of his fastest lap. And then Robertson, Stump, Kartner, Lawrence, Fiddler, we're all seeing them together. Russ Addy's not that far behind either. There is in the orange car at the back of this pack. And then Leif Helberg rounded out your top 8 on track at the moment. But yeah, these drivers are they're still pushing on. You see Robertson really pushing it on the brakes into the corkscrew.
Yeah, and on that previous lap, Fiddler almost got past Lawrence but couldn't complete the move. So Fiddler's definitely starting to make his presence known over this field and in this battle. And Russ Addy suddenly is right in there as well. Lawrence a bit wide of the apex on the final corner. Fiddler picks up maybe a slightly better run, but then again, Lawrence has the draft and the slipstream of all those other cars in front. It sort of helps him defend from Fiddler. They get past some lap traffic, puts Bill Lawrence on a non-optimal line into the corner, but the same is true of Fiddler. So no move going here for Andrew Fiddler, and no move going for Bill Lawrence, but you can see how much closer on lap 11 Fiddler got to Lawrence.
Yeah, absolutely. I was hoping that one would actually update for the last lap that they just did, but unfortunately the graphic didn't for us. So as we go through the left-hander, important to carry the speed through this corner because you're going uphill all the way, so you need to carry that speed as much as possible through the left-hand kink here. You can hear how much them to just lift off there as they carry on uphill, and then as late as you dare brake for the corkscrew. A little bit of locking up brakes going on in front of him. Not the best run for Fiddler there, and actually lost a ton of time through the corkscrew.
Yeah, indeed, you can see the number of car lengths to Lawrence just expanding a little bit. Robertson's having some troubles with traffic here, and then it's really checked him up towards Paul Stump. Stephen Karkner doesn't get the exit he'd want either. So it's Robertson lucky to hold on to second place, honestly, there, because he would have lost a whole heap of time. He goes from doing a 1:17 on the last lap to doing a 1:19 this time. Karkner has a look at the inside of Stump, can't get it done. Now it's Lawrence and Fiddler getting held up. It's letting Russ Addy catch all the way up as well, so he's now part of this battle. Now a 6-car battle for second place. Although a little bit of a gap is open between Karkner and Lawrence, that could definitely close in the coming laps. Robertson's under more pressure than he's been in a long time, I'd say, right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Stump is really piling the pressure on now. We saw how his first race was affected, how he had to work with the damage to his car, but look at well, again, Robertson was the one that had a damaged car before his big incident with the wall, but now these two in a decent position. They'll be wanting to get as good a result as possible. Robertson will be desperate to hold on to second place here just to try and keep a decent result, whereas Stump, he's in third place. He's got a good result here, but he wants to move forward. He wants to get that one extra spot for taking forward in the championship after this first round. It's the first round of a new 12-week season, and it's absolutely fantastic to have you along again for 3 of those rounds as we're heading down into turn 1.
Yep, indeed, and on that lap, Russ Addy, because of the traffic, was 0.6 faster than Andrew Fiddler. That's helped him catch up to the end of this train in the orange car. He's not quite at the gearbox of Fiddler like Karkner is of Paul Stump. Suddenly, instead of Robertson being under pressure from Stump, it looks like Karkner is putting the pressure on him. It just shows the ebb and flow of the pace of this race. Karkner in the middle of this 6-car battle.
Oh, running wide stump there through the kink, able to keep his foot in it, but it's little mistakes like that that you don't need to be making here on the brakes. And oh, Cartner's off, and that's him out the race. Big instant there for Stephen Cartner.
Yeah, well, look at what's happened there. He's coming up the hill through the kink. He's fine, but it's the braking zone into the corkscrew. You see, it's a little kink to the right, and it's over the crest, and he's done pretty similar to what Jos van der Ven did, but with worse consequences. The car spins to the right-hand side. He goes nose first into the concrete. Damage to the front wing and damage to the tyres, and that's effectively a retirement there from Stephen Cartner. So unlucky for him there. Just pushing it a bit too hard on the brakes. Comes unstuck, and then there were 5, and that opens up a bit of a gap between Stump and Lawrence. So Robertson continuing to lead the train, and Lawrence continuing to do the gardening.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you're Matt Robertson, I'd hope that they're in the same chat room as each other with Bill Lawrence, but I'd be saying right now to Bill, come on Bill, get up with Paul Stump and put him under pressure just to get him off of my back and get yourself a solid result. Okay, he won the first race, but still you want to do as well as you can in each of your races here into the chicane, to the corkscrew, world famous corkscrew once again, and down the hill. But yeah, these drivers, they're pushing hard, but Robertson will be wanting as much help from Lawrence as possible.
Yeah, and Robertson is not going to just rest on the fact that he banked the winning points from race 1. He was defending that position. Stump had a great run up the hill. Now he's under pressure here. Lawrence is going to put his nose in front of Stump. He's going to go around the outside.
Did Stump end up getting a slowdown penalty there on the last corner?
I'm not sure, but he certainly had to drop back a little bit, and now comes Fiddler to the inside to try and take the position away. Stump out in the grass. Russ Addy looking at them go side by side in front of him. He gets a great run, but has nowhere to go. Has to check up. He's going to have to go around the outside of Stump. So is Fiddler. Fiddler trying to go around the outside. They almost touch. Stump holds on, but now Addy is to the inside of the kink. No, backs out of it and lets Fiddler hold onto the position. But Stump has definitely lost a lot of time.
Here's a look at it. No, he bogged down. He didn't have it in the right gear. That's exactly what it was for Stump then. And Stump, you'll see the car coming alongside to the right there, in towards the hairpin. And he just had it in the wrong gear on the exit of that final corner. It sounds like he's maybe having a little bit of issues with down changes. So I'm wondering if he's maybe having a little bit of hardware issues. We'll come back to the live pictures now. But it seems to be okay for the moment. But that seemed to be that it just wasn't changing down gear for him.
Of course, that would cost you an incredible amount of time if you couldn't have the right gear off the corner to accelerate away. And if you say so, it definitely looks like that could have been the issue for him there. It's gone and lost him a spot to Lawrence, but he's managed to recover, fend off Fiddler, fend off Russ Addy, those two behind, not putting as much pressure on him as they would earlier. Addy, I think, is time for him to put the pressure on Andrew Fiddler. Both of these guys up 5 spots from where they qualified. Oh, just as I say that, Addy, too hard through the kink. Rear gets away from him. He keeps it off the wall, keeps it pointing the right way, but that has lost him a whole heap of time, lost him the battle he was a part of, and now Leif Hellberg is going to look to get past him. Here's the race spot replay. Into the kink, just 2 wheels on the curbing on the outside at the point of turn in, too aggressive, car didn't stick, and he's lost all of the momentum and lost a good handful of seconds.
Oh, we've got more drama.
Van der Ven in the wall.
Yeah, we've got more drama here. In fact, Van der Ven's going to take a tour back to the pits here. And don't say it's going to be the same thing as what happened to Stefan in that first race. Oh, there's a car off there. Oh, and they've ended up hitting them. Oh,
It's been collected, so that is not the fault of Jos van der Ven whatsoever. He's seen that other car. He's tried to, I think, swing across, and it's collected the rear of van der Ven as he was on the exit of the corkscrew. From the helicopter shot here, we see that other car
right
off.
in the way. It's what we get to see. It's not the best camera shot, that, but yeah, that was not the best, was it really?
No, van der Ven will not be happy with that. He'd been on quite the recovery drive, worked his way back into the top 10 after spinning early in the race. And then a car rejoining the circuit has clipped his rear and sent him around into the wall. Damage on several corners, and so a retirement for Jos van der Ven.
Well, we're nearly at the end of this race already. We've had plenty of drama in these two races. It's been enjoyable to watch, and still we've got battling going on, and these two, they go across the line, 0.7 of a second between them. Fiddler that last lap ahead, slightly faster than Stump on that last lap, although taking that different line through the hairpin, and that's one of the things he can do around this track, is take a little bit of a wider line, wider entry.
Yeah, indeed, that's one of the corners with a couple of different lines. So that's what is going on for Andrew Fiddler, trying to ride along with Paul Stump, and just really doesn't look like he's putting the pressure on him. Leif Hellberg, in his pursuit of Russ Addy, has had an issue. What has happened here? Here's the replay. You see the orange car of Addy, the black and white car of Hellberg. Hellberg was trying to hunt him down, and it's just gone out a little bit wide, kept the throttle planted in the dirt, and then nose first, not into the tyres, but into the concrete barrier. And that's always a risk you take when you run out wide there and then try and keep the throttle down, is that you might lose control out there. Car for Hellberg, a bit of damage on it. Bruce Poole thinks about trying to go to the inside of the corkscrew, but can't do it. Poole will definitely have more straight line speed, maybe a bit more confidence than Hellberg, who knows with 2 laps to go he might be able to hold off for 7th position here.
Yeah, it's hardly ideal is that front end right now for Leif, but Hellberg coming under pressure from Bruce Poole. I thought Bruce Poole was going to go right into the gearbox of the car in front as they come across the line, then for the start of the penultimate lap for these two. But Leif now will really be feeling the effects of that damage in towards turn number 1, but luckily for him, able to hold on to that inside line.
You can see Poole just has a lot more straight line speed at the end of the straight there, and just couldn't get to the inside line to try and make an overtaking maneuver of it. But what about up the hill towards the corkscrew this time around? I think there and into the Andretti hairpin is the 2 best opportunities that Bruce Poole has got to try and make a move. You see, once you get to the end of the straight, the drag tops out the top speed for Leif Hellberg. Comes under an immense amount of pressure from Bruce Poole late towards the braking zones. Not an optimal run up the hill from either of them, I don't think. Bruce Poole can't go right. Can he go left? He'll think about it. He'll try. Backs out of it. Maybe even tricks Hellberg into going too deep, but it's Poole who goes a little bit too deep around the outside. The leader, Stefan Rostgen, has started his final lap of the race, and this is further than he got in race 1 by about a lap or so. And I'm sure that will play on his mind. His pace has been immense. He leads, as you can see, by 15 seconds over Mark Robertson. Even when he takes it easy, there's really no lifting off from the pace for Stefan Rostgen. Consistently in the 1:17s, faster than everyone else out there. 2-time pole sitter this round. No one has been able to touch his pace at Laguna Seca. It's just a question of his reliability. Effectively, he's only got a couple more corners to go. He's past the point that got him undone last time, and he runs very, very, very wide on the final lap. All sorts of out of shape there for Stefan Rostgen. He didn't need that, but he survives it, and into the final corner he goes after 22 laps for sweet, sweet redemption after race 1. Stefan Rostgen is going to be your winner in race 2, and that will make him equal points leader with Mark Robertson. Sorry, Bill Lawrence, indeed. The 2 teammates, Robertson and Lawrence, will come across for 2nd and 3rd. There they go. My mistake there indeed, but so Rostian and Lawrence equal points leaders after round 1. A couple of other battles still to be decided. Poole has not been able to find a way past Hellberg just yet. And that is just about everyone who was on your lead lap. Just a couple more cars to make it across the line, including this one here. Gianni Rispaldo in the number 48 car. Team Italian Turtles gets 13th place, and Richard Coulomb, I think, has already crossed the line behind him. So that's just about everyone. So we'll take a look at the finishing order in Race 2. This new season of 60 Plus Racing Adventures. Stefan Rostian atones for his mistake and his crash in Race 1 to be the winner in Race 2 and in commanding form. 14 seconds clear of Mark Robertson and his teammate Bill Lawrence in 3rd. Paul Stump in 4th. Andrew Fiedler gets 5th. Then Russ Addy in 6th. Leif Hellberg in 7th. Fends off Bruce Poole in 8th. Franz Brink finishes in 9th. Bruce Granheim gets 10th.
11th place then for Lewis Cannell, we saw with heavy damage there. Jared Florison, 12th place ahead of Gianni Rispaldo, another car with heavy damage, and the last car on the lead lap, Richard Coulomb, in 14th place. Bob Kern, Carl Bogle, Leroy Coppage, who we saw have that major scare on lap 1, was able to finish the race in 17th place. Sorry, I'm just busy fixing something here, but there we go. Right, Wally Moresby in 18th ahead of Roberto De Filippis. Urs Muller rounds up your top 20, and then the rest of the cars did not finish. Jos van der Ven, Richard Varley, Thomas Byram, Stephen Kartner, which is a big disappointment for him. Fred McIntosh, Joel Martin, Jack Turner, Antonio Reyes and Mark Lisson. The final 2 did not finish lap number 1.
So another very interesting race and the start of a new season. We'll talk to our winner in Race 2, Stefan Rostian. You had all of the pace in Race 1, but you couldn't get the result. But redemption in Race 2.
Yeah, in Race 2 everything worked fine, and I did not make a stupid mistake, and could keep my concentration up, and yeah.
What happened there in Race 1 in the corkscrew? Just a little bit wide, found a bump on the curb, and then straight into the wall?
Yeah, I was driving a little bit too fast. All the time I wanted to do fast laps, and good idea when you are...
Well, luckily the format... Sorry, finish your point there.
Late and right on the right side, and then the curb is a kind of a landmine, and then I had no chance to.
Well, thankfully the points format here means that you were able to redeem yourself in Race 2, where you did set the fastest lap of 1 minute 17.126, and you'll go out of this round equal points leader once again. You've won this championship before. Can you do it again this season?
Well, I hope so. I will do my best, and let's see what happens.
It's definitely a good attitude to have, and we'll see you again for 2 more broadcasted rounds on RaceSpot, which we really look forward to. The Pro Mazda again in this series, and I think what is it about the Pro Mazda that seems to produce some good racing?
Oh, I have no idea. Maybe it's a draft, and you can't drive away, and you always have a lot of fights and fighting.
Well, thanks so much for speaking to us. Congratulations on your win here in Race 2. And anyone you'd like to thank while we've got you on the Race Spot broadcast.
Thank you to the admin, thank you to RaceSpot, thank you to all the teams.
There we go. Stefan Roestgen speaking with us. Mark Robertson was our second place finisher, and he's going to speak with Paul Smith.
Yeah, so Mark, second place in this second race. The format has helped you able to get a good result here from the week, but a bit of a difficult first race for yourself. Just quickly touch on that first race, and then how difficult was it in that second race in that pack of 5 cars?
Well, I made sure I kept my eyes forward. I don't know how many was in the pack. The first race, just made a mistake, which is so easy to do here. I got a little too fast, a little too wide, and next thing I know I'm off track, and it all went downhill from there. I told myself that I was going to bring it back a notch this time and try to keep the car, keep all 4 wheels on the pavement, and well, I guess it paid off.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we saw you start this second race in 4th position, gain 2 positions into second, just ahead of your teammate who, of course, won the first race. A really good start to the season for Team Morgan, then.
Yeah, it is, and this is a challenging track for me. It's always been my nemesis, seems like. Especially, I think it's turn 6, that little kink from under the bridge there. Seems like I'm holding my breath every time I go through that corner.
You're not the only one who struggles around here, I can assure you of that. But the rest of the season, then we showed the season schedule at the start of the broadcast. Watkins Glen, the boot layout next time out, another slipstreaming track. How do you feel you'll fare there?
Well, I usually do fairly well on the high slipstream tracks. Watkins Glen's no exception. Last week at the season finale at Road America, the guys like me that aren't quite as fast as the really fast guys, that the advantage of being able to draft back up keeps us in contention. So, and so there's always a good chance for me at Watkins Glen.
And before we let you go, anyone you want to give a quick mention to whilst you're on the broadcast?
Well, just all the admins of 60 Plus League, all the great guys that I race with every week. It's really a blast, and of course my wife Sharon, that allows me to do this every week, and of course you guys at RaceSpot that do this broadcasting and lets us show off our what we done on track.
Pass on our thanks to your wife as well for letting you do this, because it's always great to speak to you after these races, and all the best for the rest of the season, Mark.
Okay, thanks guys. See you next time.
There we go, second place finisher Mark Robertson, and we'll move on once again to Bill Lawrence, who got 3rd in this race, and what a little race we had over second place.
Hi, David. Yeah, it was quite a race there. Mark was wondering, as a teammate, if I could have passed him, and it was very difficult to pass today. I had Paul Stump and Steve Carkner in front, and I couldn't get around. You just have to wait.
And one of the things we see really often in this series is a lot of slipstreaming, a lot of draft passes. It just seems like the speeds aren't quite as high at Laguna Seca, and that's why it's so difficult to get some of those passes done.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't quite have the distance. The fastest corner on the track is turn 6, so you've got turn 5 in that corner, so you can see with the draft, you just don't have the space.
Well, 2 podium finishes for you in the first round bodes pretty well for your form. You're going to leave this round as equal points leader with Stefan Roestgen. Is this going to set up to be another fantastic battle for the championship all season long?
That would be my dream, but we'll see how it goes, one race at a time.
Obviously, Stefan Rostion was very, very quick, but we've seen that he's not infallible in these cars.
That's true. I like to, if I can, especially as you mentioned on the draft tracks, if I can keep some pressure on them, it's like anyone. If someone's pressuring me, odds are I could make a mistake. So if I can do that, there's some hope.
Well, certainly, you've laid the groundwork in round 1, and we'll look forward to seeing you race in round 6 and in the season finale, hopefully here on RaceSpot. Before we say goodbye and good night, any shout-outs you'd like to give again? Any thanks? Any other comments?
Yeah, I really need to thank my wife. I mean, who can be driving a race car when she comes in and says, I need some corn husks? So I've got to go off to do that. It's dinner time here on the East Coast.
Well, best of luck with that as well, and I hope there's some good corn husks.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Have a good afternoon, and thanks for your coverage.
Thanks to you guys as well, putting on a fantastic show. Paul, that just about wraps up most of our proceedings here from Laguna Seca.
Yeah, absolutely. Just one quick final look at the schedule then for the 60 Plus Racing Adventures. Well, we've been there at Laguna Seca. We won't be back on coverage until October the 16th when they race around Mid-Ohio. Another track that's going to be quite difficult to overtake at because of the lack of slipstream there. But Watkins Glen Boot, they're going to have some fun around there. Brands Hatch is always a good one with Bathurst and Interlagos. Some classic tracks here. After we show Mid-Ohio, we've got Nürburgring, Road Atlanta, Silverstone, Zandvoort with Barcelona GP, and then the final round being shown live on November the 27th for Phillip Island. So some great action for this series. If you are 60 or older and you would be interested in racing in this series, do get in touch with the admins of this series because it produces fantastic racing, and we get to meet you as well if you do take part. So I would encourage anybody who does qualify for this series to take part in it.
And we always hear from all the drivers we speak to how much they enjoy the community of this racing series as well. It seems like no one has a bad time and no one has any ill feelings towards any of their other competitors. Seems like a great league if that's how you are inclined. Well, thanks so much for tuning in here to this round of 60 Plus Racing Adventures on RaceSpotTV. I've been David Haynes, it's been Paul Smith. Our thanks go to Istvan Baloff of Track Cams 22, and of course this was produced by Paul Smith. Remember to subscribe and follow us on all of our social media platforms here on RaceSpot, because we cover all manner of exciting sim racing action. Plenty of it coming up that you are not going to want to miss. Until next time, goodbye and good night.